Hi, mining community. Welcome back to another episode of the Dig Deep, the Mining Podcast. And today's guest is Craig Bradshaw, who's the CEO of Masan High-Tech Material Corporation, who have a vision to become a leading global integrated supplier of high-tech advanced materials critical to global innovation and operate. And they also obviously operate the Nui Phao mining operation in Vietnam. Craig is an experienced mining executive with a finance and commercial background and has extensive experience in Southeast Asia. And he's going to talk to us today about the company and how they've transformed themselves over the past few years and what the future holds for the company moving forward. So that's welcome, Craig, to the podcast. How you doing, Craig?
Good, Rob. Thanks for the introduction. And you had a lot to get through.
Yeah, certainly we have. Obviously, we've just been speaking off air, and obviously a lot of things have happened with the company over the last few years. But I wondered if you can just give us and I know you've been with the company for a while, so just wondered if you can give us an overview of yourself, your sort of career, and obviously we've been speaking about this just off air. So I wondered if you give a snapshot of your career going way back when you worked for working in Mount Isa or even before then, and then we can go into a little bit more about obviously the company.
No, certainly. Look, I'm a failed accountant. I did business at university, and for my sins, I got a graduate scholarship with MIM, Mount Isa Mines, back in '92, I think it was. Right back when Australia was going into a recession at the time, and look. Probably the best thing that ever happened was the fact that I scored that job with Mount Isa Mines. The graduate program that they ran was fantastic. Gave me opportunity to work in and get exposure to mining operations, copper, lead, zinc. At the time was X41, 1100 ore body, 3500 ore body, which became Enterprise, Hilton, George Fisher. Got exposure to copper smelting, copper concentrating, lead, zinc, same. Then over into smelters and refining, and as well as then services. So I got involved at the time in Mica Creek Power Station, conversion to gas, getting gas to Mount Isa, then the sale of non-core assets. And so for me, Mount Isa was a great place to work. You had a lot of people who had a lot of industry experience. They were really happy to share their experience and their knowledge. The Peter Munros, the Bill Johnsons, the Barry Sullivan, Phil Wright, Stephen O'Donnell's, really intelligent, capable people that were really happy to spend time with graduates and help build their careers. And so I did 7 years in Mount Isa, went to Townsville, did 3 years over in Townsville with port operations there, Isa Process, marketing, Bowen Coke Works, then went to Brisbane, got involved in exploration in that stage, spent a couple of years in exploration, business development. Then Strata took over. At that point, I'd had enough of mining, and I went and joined Toll Logistics and worked with Toll doing rail logistics and helping there with strategy in terms of businesses that have been acquired. There were good bits of the business and there were bad bits of the business, and the bad bits I got to work on for my sins in terms of helping either turn them around, sell them off, or shut them down. And did that in Australia for 3 years, and then got sent to Thailand for Toll. I had an oil and gas logistics business that was losing money, and got asked to go there and help fix that up. And so did that, and then they went and bought Sembcorp Logistics. So all of a sudden I'm sitting in meetings with consumer electronics companies complaining about the fridge got delivered with a dent in it, and I decided that wasn't what I wanted to be doing, and rang a mate, Tony Houston, who just happened to be going through Bangkok at the time on his way to Sepon, which is Optiana, and they were looking for a commercial manager. So one thing led to another, and I joined Optiana up in Laos. And spent a few years there with them. That was around the 2008 GFC. Oxiana became Oz Minerals. We then got sold off to MMG. So I started working for MMG, which was part of China Min Metals. Did that for a couple of years, and then my boss left at the time. I took his job as general manager of the LXML operations in Laos. And then 6 months later, I got a phone call from my ex-boss wanting to know whether I wanted to come to Vietnam to set up a new company as a greenfield. And hadn't done that before, and decided that was the way good opportunity. So I ended up in Vietnam in 28th of February 2011. And when I arrived, Nui Phao was rice paddy and buffaloes, right? And there's about $110 million of equipment that had been bought that was sitting in containers that the previous owners ran into financial difficulty doing the GFC. The project got sold off to Masan Group, who set up a company, Masan Resources. And at the time, it was him and me, and let's build a project. And so the following 3 years, that's what we did. Brought in a construction director and built a team of people to take it from an idea or a concept to commercial operation. And at the time we did that, that was the first new tungsten mine to be brought into development in the Western world in 15 years. Right? And so it's a polymetallic deposit. So it's tungsten, fluorspar, copper, bismuth, and then a bit of gold. So it had its complexities. And to be fair, I think from construction to full commercial production, it took us about 2.5, 3 years to get the whole thing and everything to work the way it was meant to, or the way it was designed to. And we were lucky we had owners who, they were a conglomerate in Vietnam. They had reasonably deep pockets. They didn't particularly want to have to put their hands into those reasonably deep pockets, but they were supportive of the business and supportive of us to actually work through the issues, which we did. And so then we listed around 2014 as Masan Resources. We then went into a joint venture with HC Stark to build an APT plant in Vietnam. So then we were able to process our tungsten concentrates into ammonium paratungstate. And then in 2020, we ended up taking over the whole HC Stark global tungsten powders business. And that then took us further downstream into tungsten carbides, tungsten metal powders, tungsten chemicals for a variety of different industries. So at the time we went from globally 30 customers to globally having 350 plus customers, right? And that hasn't been without its cultural challenges. Masan Resources is a company that this year will celebrate our 11th birthday, or 12th birthday. HC Stark tungsten powders celebrate its 102nd birthday, right? So a company that's been around for 10 years, taking over a company that's been around for 100 years, there's a variety of cultural issues that are created from that, aside from nationalities, right? There's whole things that need to be done, but businesses work well. We've continued to grow the business. We've built market share, and we're developing plans to extend the business beyond the tungsten, fluorspar, bismuth, copper, and cobalt that we do today into other materials.
Before we go on to obviously speak about obviously the company, I picked up on something you said at the beginning, and I just wanted to sort of ask you a question around that. You mentioned obviously some of the senior people in Mount Isa, and obviously you were a graduate back then. Do you think nowadays there's less of that interaction and mentoring with some very senior people and the graduates that are coming through the system? Do you see, was it better back then? Is it better now around sort of mentoring and trying to the more experienced, and I suppose we're getting a lot more experienced guys probably leaving the industry because of maybe their age, or they've decided now is the time to leave the industry, and obviously their wealth of experience is leaving the industry, when we should be using their wealth of experience and helping the graduates that are coming into the industry. Would you say it was better back then? Is it better now? Is there differences? Just wondering if you can give us your, I suppose, your views on that.
I was lucky to score the grade on, get on the Mount Isa graduate scheme, right? And the reason I say that is that I like playing football. For me, going to Mount Isa was like winning the lottery, right? I played rugby on a Saturday, I played Aussie rules on a Sunday, and people are paying me money 5 days a week to turn up and do a job, right? And the combination of playing sport in that sort of environment, the EGM of Mount Isa was the president of the rugby club. So I'd play rugby on a Saturday afternoon, have a beer at the clubhouse on Saturday night, and you'd rub shoulders with the general manager of the zinc part of the business or the copper part of the business. The EGM would be there. In that case, it was Barry Sullivan and his wife Tony. And so you'd be working during the week, you play football, you socialise with some of these people. So that when you had a meeting the following week or you were providing them information to make a decision, they knew who you were. And because they knew who you were, then if you asked a question, they give you the time to give you an answer, right? And so I think the challenge or the difficulty these days is back then you had the ability to socialise with the senior management at the same time as then during the week working with them, right? And so you saw people as full people, right? And if you're an inquisitive young graduate, they would invest the time in you in terms of answering your questions. I think the challenge for a lot of people these days is they're only getting thin slices. So they're only seeing them at work. They're only seeing them 8 to 5 or what are the hours other people work in Australia these days, right? And so the challenge is, how do you build relationships so that people see you as being worthwhile to spend their time and invest that time? Because it is an investment on senior executives in younger people, right? They've got an hour to spend. Their return on that hour from a business perspective is to spend it with good people, right? And so you need to, if you want to be in that queue, best thing is to have a personal relationship in some fashion, and that's difficult to manufacture. I was lucky that the people that ran the mining operations, they were into rugby, and so or into Aussie rules, right? And as a result of that, I got to see those people socially, and then that then helped the fabric in terms of working with them. In Vietnam these days, so obviously I've been in Southeast Asia now for 15, 16 years. I see in the Vietnamese graduates coming through from the universities, they're really hungry, right? They want to do whatever hours are required. They're interested in bettering themselves. They're interested in the business. They want to understand the business. I think that's really important. Even our accountants, our graduate accountants, they go spend time at the mine, spend time at the process plant. They're not just looking at a number in a spreadsheet or on a report. They're getting in behind that to understand that. And so, what I've seen is the people we employ who've been in the industry for 20, 30 years are happy to spend time with those people who are inquisitive and want to learn. The challenge for the industry is, as those people leave the industry, there's less and less people coming through who have that ability or have that widespread knowledge, right? And to be fair, our industry is not the sexiest, right? If you're a graduate coming through today and you can go spend time working for a Google or a Atlassian or a Netflix, whatever, right? There's a lot more industries that are far sexier than ours, right? And so I think we have an image problem as an industry. I think it's got better over the last few years. It's been addressed, but there's still a big gap, and it takes time for that then to be filled up or channeled. When I look at the people I was peers with as graduates in Mount Isa, most of them have ended up as CEOs of different mining companies, right? And a high number of them. Now, my view is that the MIM graduate scheme back then was excellent, right? But I think it also, beyond that, speaks to, quite simply, the industry has been short of people for a long period of time. And as a result of that, if you're good and you're capable, you will end up in senior positions because there's less people available.
Yeah. Would you say the environment at Mount Isa was pretty unique in that, obviously, you had a variety of different base metal commodities up there. You had that environment where you just mentioned, where you had a lot of social functions, obviously sport. There may be obviously other things going on as well. And you're combining the work with the social side, where you are networking constantly whilst you're playing sport. Was that pretty unique compared to, I suppose, other places around the world, where you probably just go to work 5, 6 days or whatever, 7 days, and then you're away from work, but not whereas obviously you could be doing something more sociable, but you're doing it with work friends as well. So that's where obviously you benefited from being in that type of environment, and other people have benefited from that environment, where you've said now some of those people are now CEOs of mining companies. So that environment has created those people. And if you're not in that environment, it's probably harder to become leaders within the mining industry.
Absolutely. If you're a graduate today and you want to go spend your entire career working in Sydney, Melbourne, or even Perth, right, then I don't think you get the skill sets that you need to lead a company, right? And particularly in mining, mineral processing, you know, you've got to go spend time at the coalface where the money's made, right? And that's spending a few years at least in the mine, in the mineral processing, or working at those locations, right? Because you'll just learn so much about what makes the whole industry tick, right? And I think the better leaders in the mining industry are the people who've come from backgrounds where they have spent time at those locations, right? And if you like, I talk about it sometimes as in the academic terms of having it under your fingernails, right? It means that you've been out there, you've worked with people at sites, you've met them in the bar afterwards. They might be a Caruna truck driver underground. They could be excavator operator. They could be the shift supervisor in the smelter. Whatever, it doesn't matter, right? But it's a case of having discussions, having an understanding of what's happened in their day, how they're feeling about the organisation, the company. It gives you different perspectives across your business, so that later on, when you are in a senior leadership position and you're making decisions about where you're taking your company, you start to think about, how do I bring that 2,000 people along the journey with me, right? Because it's no good me marching off in a direction by myself, will fail. You get 2,000 people heading in that direction because it's the right direction and they believe in it, then the organisation will be successful, right? And so, part of it is actually getting an insight in terms of the culture of your organisation, the culture of your people, by living with those people in those environments, not necessarily doing their job. I don't have a truck driver ticket. I don't have a ticket to drive an excavator, right? And in different forums, one of the comments I've made to people is, anyone can go buy trucks, anyone can go buy excavators, anyone can go get an engineering house to design them a plan and then build them a plan, right? But the difference between a poor company, a good company, and a great company is going to be the quality of the people that you get, right? And how well you scaffold those people for success. And I feel that my insight into people came from working in places like Mount Isa, where you actually got exposure to all those different levels of the organisation. And that then helps you frame how you work with those people now as a leader of a company.
Yeah, I understand. Right, moving on. Obviously, we want to talk about the company, and obviously you've gone through a bit of a change more recently. So, just wondered if you can give us an overview over the last few years of how the company sort of progressed, and obviously you've had a name change as well.
Yep. So we looked at, so originally started as Nui Phao Mining Company, Nui Phao deposit, where we listed as Masan Resources, which is very much, if you like, mining focus. And it was a mining focused business. We produced tungsten concentrate, copper concentrate, acid grade fluorspar, which is still a concentrate, a bismuth cement, which is a more refined product, but basically it's still a high grade concentrate. And so, and essentially producing commodities, right? And if you're producing commodities, then the only way to compete in the market is to be the lowest cost producer, right? Because in commodities, it's worth, the price is going to be what the price is going to be. You can't control the price. And as a price taker, all you can control is where you sit on the cost curve, right? And your focus then is to be, ideally, mining talk, be in the lowest cost quadrant, and then 75% of the industry is going to go out of business before you do, right? That's not necessarily how everyone will talk about it, but that's fundamentally what it is, right? And so we had made a decision strategically that we wanted to move beyond providing or producing commodities and really get into a value add, right? And in going down the stream to value add and take out our products beyond just commodities, it increases our addressable market in terms of the total dollar value of the materials that we could sell into. It increases the number of customers that we can deal with. And it also means that we can tailor products to customers for their specific needs, right? And in particular, through R&D, if you want a better drill bit, for example, right? Or you want a better shielding material, we now work with customers to what are the characteristics that you want in that material, and what are the ways in which our product dovetails into that characteristic. So how do we then improve our product, or how do we facilitate you to improve your product to get better out of the material characteristics, right? And there's a whole plethora of ways that you can influence material characteristics. And so we then, private equity at the time owned HC Stark Tungsten. We had a joint venture with them. We had bought out that joint venture at a point in time. And that was all about us getting access to technology to improve what we did in Vietnam. And then willing seller, very willing buyer. It aligned so that we acquired that business at what we felt at the time was a very good price. But what it gave us was entryways into value add branded products, not just selling commodities, right? And to be fair, we still do sell some commodities, but it's not where we want to be, right? What we're striving to do is to look at what is it that customers want out of materials, and can we provide the science and the processes to get those characteristics out of tungsten, cobalt, or other materials, tantalum, niobium, etc. Right? And so it has helped us move away from being a price taker on the commodity side. It's also helped us to, if you like, gives us a level of insurance in terms of having customers who are wedded to us in terms of they get a unique product, and that unique product goes into automotive or aerospace or defense, or we're getting more customers that we're working with now in battery tech, as an example, right? Who are looking at some of our products for enhancing the performance of batteries, be that from a charging speed, a fire resistance, etc. And so, we want to position ourselves for that market with advanced products, because we see the EV market, and we spoke earlier, the world is, governments around the world are pushing the whole world very quickly to an EV solution, right? Now, the I don't believe that from a materials perspective, we're set up to actually meet that need. And that's then going to cause a whole lot of other issues in terms of when there's scarce resources and a lot of competition for those resources, you're going to get higher prices, but beyond prices, it may well be that some of those materials or minerals aren't going to be available at any price for certain applications because the end product doesn't justify it. And so, that's also part of the reason why we moved from mining and acquired a company that, yes, they were a large customer of ours. They at the time took about 30% of our APT that we produced. But beyond that, they also had recycled technology. So taking tungsten scraps, swarfs, broken drill bits, the heads off raise borers, the buttons, the buttons off of the drill heads. They're all tungsten carbide type products, right? And so these are the type of products we take back and recycle back into new materials, right? And from those, we're providing, we're recovering the tungsten, or depending on the product, copper, the nickel, cobalt, and based on the current Stark technology, 40% of all of the tungsten we produce now comes from recycle. We see that the world's future demand, it takes 10 years to develop a new mine, right? And so the speed at which governments are looking to drive change to renewables and to EV, to net zero carbon emissions, means that there's going to be a shortage of key materials: nickel, lithium, copper, cobalt, tungsten. And as a result of that, if it can't come from new mines, the only other place it can come from is recycle. And so we're positioning ourselves at the forefront of being able to recycle a number of those critical materials, which is, if you like, an adjunct to the recycling we already undertake. And so we see that as a very logical way in which to expand and to grow our business beyond what we do today.
Could you obviously talk about recycling? Could you share with us more details about the recycling technology platform owned by MHT and member companies?
Yep. So through the HC Stark acquisition, the HC Stark's the leading recycler of tungsten in particular. But at the Goslar facility, they also had a cobalt line, a molybdenum line, tantalum, and so there's other materials that they've got production lines for that were mothballed by previous owners. We started to relook at utilising and reinvigorating those production lines. And interestingly, as a result of marrying up a mining and mineral processing company with an industrial products processing company, the combination of getting all of the smart people in the room together has actually given us some new technology ideas. We've applied for new patents in the back end of last year that we're now working through pilot plant, but we're developing a pilot plant to recover lithium, nickel, copper, cobalt, manganese from black mass, for example. Now, we didn't start out looking at black mass. What we started looking at was sludges from hard tool recycling. Having got taken out the tungsten and the cobalt, there was other materials left. And we were looking at how do we actually get full value of that from those sludges. Just so happens that in the process of doing that, we decided to test the same techniques or processes on black mass and found that it equally works. And that technology, it's still got to go through all the proof of concept, but if it works, it recycles those materials with a lower environmental footprint than the currently available technology. So it uses less energy to recycle those materials, and it uses less water in its process to recycle those materials. And so we've got a long way to go. I'm not expecting the results of our proof of concept work to come out until the back end of this year. But if that's successful, then that's a fantastic adjunct to what we're already doing. So we're in the market talking to people about black mass recycling. You know, we're already working with customers who are looking to add tungsten to their batteries. The challenge within that, it's fine to stick the tungsten in, you then also got to get the tungsten back out. So we don't want to lose it from our ecosystem. And so we're working with them for the same reasons. If the tungsten's going to go into batteries, we want to be able to get the tungsten back out. And that was also why it was important for us to actually develop that style of technology. And so at the moment, we do recycling in Goslar in Germany. We also do recycling in Vietnam, right? The plant in Vietnam, we secure scrap, we get it calcinated in other locations. We can't calcinate at our factory in Vietnam yet, but over the next 12 months, we will put in calcination facilities in Vietnam, so we can actually then do cradle to grave recycling in Vietnam, where at the moment we do part of the process elsewhere, and then bring in a semi-recycled material into Vietnam for further processing through the cycle. But it all works, right? It's probably also one of the benefits of the plant that we built in Vietnam. Because of the commitments we gave to the government, we were under a tight time frame within which we had to have a plant operation, right? And what we ended up doing was building a hybrid Chinese-German plant. So basically, it was a sodium tungstate plant using Chinese technology, and then solvent extraction and purification process using German technology. And putting the two of them together has meant that we've got a plant that its window of operation is very wide. We can take lots of different materials with different impurities and process them all, right? And so preferentially, I want to buy the rubbish around the world because it's available cheaper. Other people can't process it, and we can, and it gives you good margin. So ideally, that's where you want to be. I don't want to be in the space competing with everyone for the same material. We want to be this taking material that no one wants. It's sitting in the backyard or the back of the factory because it's a problem for someone. We'll come in and clean that up for you, and we'll make a buck while doing it. It's not bad business.
Yeah. Talk about obviously products and all the variety of minerals that produce: tungsten, copper, fluorspar. What does the future look like for the products that you're producing?
The future looks good, right? For a range of reasons. When you look at global megatrends, you look at urbanisation. Urbanisation requires investment, roads, rail, electrification, buildings. So as urbanisation continues, that's good for our products that go into industrial applications, right? When you look at renewables, right? Be it solar, be it wind, etc., that consumes tungsten, it consumes copper, it consumes, in some cases, fluorspar from going into coolant and cooling systems. So that's good for our business. When you look at EVs were initially somewhat of a concern because about 30% of tungsten goes into tooling. A lot of that tooling goes into automotive. And there's various elements, obviously, of automotive from passenger cars to trucks and machinery, right? But as we've been working with different battery manufacturers looking to try and get better performance out of batteries, we're seeing significant market potential for our tungsten-based products to go into those, either in the electrolyte side or in the anode and cathode side of the batteries, as different partners are testing different solutions. And so we're now more confident in terms of the automotive consumption of tungsten than what we were about 2-3 years ago. Certainly we're seeing positive traction in that space. And so tungsten looks good. Copper's short. We don't produce a lot of copper. We're doing about 35,000 tonnes a year of a copper concentrate. But the fact is, the world's short of copper, and that's only going to get worse over the next 5 years. Fluorspar, there's been a couple of fluorspar mines come on. They've also gone off. Fluorspar prices at $450, $500 a tonne. Price is excellent, right? And the market's still short of material, right? And so it looks good. I think it's only going to look stronger over the next couple of years. Bismuth was soft for a while. It got down to about $2.40, $2.30 a pound. It's back up around $3.90, $4 a pound. I think that's where the long-term average of the price is going to sit, right? The bismuth is a substitute for lead in a lot of applications, but quite simply, there's not enough bismuth in the world to substitute all lead applications, and nor would you from a cost perspective, right? And so those that needed to retool from a health and safety or a hygiene perspective have changed to bismuth. You look at Samsung and LGs, they use bismuth now in the glass for the televisions, right? And it doesn't consume a lot. I think it's might be 1-2 grams per square metre of glass, right? But that used to be lead. Bismuth is in your medical applications. Anyone who's taking Pepto-Bismol, right? Pepto-Bismol is an antacid. Well, the bismuth in that comes from our bismuth, right? And so, via a long production chain, but we're the single largest primary producer of bismuth in the world. Goes into medical veterinary applications for animals, right? And so look, it's strong. It's not going to grow massively as a consumption, but it'll continue to run at the rate it is. Cobalt obviously is a byproduct of our recycling process. Cobalt's strong, right? One of the reasons why we were looking at getting further down into cobalt was to protect the cobalt that's in our ecosystem from losing it to other industrial applications. Just so happens the technology we've invented has got wider applications than that. And so that's opened up more opportunities for us. In tungsten, there's been, aside from us, there's been a few other tungsten mines that have tried to come online. There are some that I think are interesting. Dolphin project in Tasmania is King On. It's interesting. There's other projects in other parts of the world that have come online. They've then gone bust. They got shut down again. People talk them up. Then the feasibility study doesn't work. There's no one. Tungsten's a difficult. You think of tungsten, gravity. How hard can it be? It's actually a difficult mineral to process and produce, right? And that's the reason why there's not a lot of tungsten mines in the world that are operational. And those that are, aside from us, they're predominantly small, right? But we buy material from anyone who's producing, and we bring that to Vietnam and process it in our APT plant because we can.
What's the ongoing investment and R&D and innovation at MHT to bring about the innovation solutions that you see as a potential game changer for sustainability or sustainable mining?
Yeah, different parts of the business. So in Vietnam, we've got government have given us high-tech status. So to maintain that high-tech status, we've committed to spend a percentage of 1% of our revenue on ongoing R&D out of our Vietnam operations. So that's in the order of, obviously it depends on what the price is doing and our production is doing, but you're looking at roughly $300 million worth of revenue last year. So 1% of that's about $3 million. In our German operations, we spend around 2 to 3 million euro a year, but that also depends, right? And depends on your cycle. So you'll have different projects that are in ideation stage. You'll have different projects that are in lab testing versus commercial proof of concept. And so depending on where we're at in that space, our spend increases. Equally, having bought HC Stark out of private equity, the focus in R&D was different under private equity versus on that private equity versus where we're looking to go, right? And so we've increased the spend, focusing on new products, focusing on partnerships with customers that are looking for better applications or new applications or better performance, focusing on, global megatrends. Where are our products today, or where are, if you like, co-located products that our sciences can produce or improve, and how do we position ourselves to be a beneficiary of those global megatrends, a participant in it, but more than that, to add value to that process. Because if you're adding value to your customers or the industry, then you're always going to have a business. You're going to maintain your relevance and maintain your business, or grow your business ideally, right? If you're not maintaining your relevance, then you'll go the way of the dinosaurs.
What is the company's philosophy of sustainability in mining production? And how do you prepare to meet the sustainable targets in the near future?
Excellent question. It's been a journey in terms of, and when you're starting a mine up, your focus is all around production, getting into production. And obviously, when you're going from zero to something, all of your emissions are going to go up, right? And so then you get up into full production, and you then got to try and offset your emissions or reduce them. And so it's an ongoing battle, to be fair. But organisationally, this comes from the Masan Group chairman, right? His view of the world is that if you are not positioning yourself for sustainability and actively participating to ensure that you are sustainable, then your organisation won't survive, right? And it's certainly something we've adopted within MHT, and to the point where we're no longer thinking about sustainability as a cost to the business. We're looking at sustainability as an efficiency element, right? So when you look at water, we recycle 74% of our water at the Nui Phao Mine operation, right? And the more water we can recycle, the lower our cost of water consumption, right? It's an efficiency, right? Power, right? Now, our cost of power in places like the EU is about 35 cents a kilowatt, right? And so, and we're buying renewables, we're buying renewable energy. It is more expensive, but that's also what our customers wanted from us from that facility. Now, focus then becomes on efficiency. How do I produce the same while using less energy to produce it? How do I lower my energy intensity because it's more expensive, right? Similarly in Vietnam. In Vietnam, power cost is only 7.8 cents a kilowatt hour, but it's increasing. So part of what we're doing is, what have our colleagues in Germany, what have they learned on their sustainability journey over the last 10, 20 years? How do we actually fast track our other operations who haven't got the same level of maturity, copy paste what they're doing and get ahead of the curve? So there's a lot of that transmission of knowledge occurring through the business, a lot of transmission of technologies through the business. Equally, one of the things we believe in is we're not experts at, there's things that we're good at, right? But at the end of the day, there's lots of things that there's other people in industry and business that are better at it than us. And so how do we go learn from what the smart people, the smart organisations are doing and apply that to our context? So part of that's organisationally being open-minded to what can we learn from others, right? We don't have a monopoly on good ideas. If the BHPs or the Rio Tintos or the Samsungs or the Teslas are doing smart stuff, they're publishing it, they're publicising it. If we can take their idea and apply it to our context, subject to obviously not breaching any patents or IP issues, but basically, if we can apply good ideas to our context and improve ourselves, we are, right? And so organisationally, we are positioning ourselves to participate in the global shift towards sustainability. We're looking at urban mining. I think urban mining is an excellent phrase, right? If the material needs of the world can't be met from new primary mines, how can we make sure that they're met from recycling urban wastes, manufacturing wastes, industrial wastes, how can we make sure they're met from reprocessing of tailings? You know, one of the things that we've spent a lot of time on from a technology perspective, mining wise, we've got another 10, 15 years ahead of us based on our current reserves and resources. But we've already done the test work to be able to reprocess the tails that we're producing now. So we already know that at the end of the mine life, we've got a flow sheet designed to be able to reprocess the tails and put it back into the pit from where it came from, right? And so we see that, and doing that now is an important part of being a responsible, mining company, or a responsible company who's got an element of their business that's mining, so that it's sustainable, right? That we're not leaving a mess to hand over to someone else, but beyond that, there's a resource there, right? It's still got mineral content in it. How do you get more efficient at recovering it today? And how do you get better at recovering it in future for future generations? Because there's not going to be the mines to be able to produce the materials as we go forward.
Got a couple more questions. So obviously the company have been going through a lot of transition just lately, and obviously we were just talking about efficiencies. You mentioned obviously you acquired a company with 100+ year history, and you obviously have a history of a lot less than that.
Yes.
How has the change management been, the culture differences, and how's that process been in obviously acquiring a company with a strong history, probably strong processes, procedures, etc.? And so what are the challenges have you had as an organization bringing that company into your business with all those established processes, established thoughts, probably everything that's been established to obviously a newly, not necessarily a newly formed company, but a less experienced company? What are the challenges have you faced with people, processes, functions, etc.?
And COVID. So we completed the acquisition on the 20th of June 2020 in the middle of COVID, right? And we had all these plans about sending people to each of the sites and day one and do this, and very quickly that all became online, and so we were doing town hall meetings online. And I'm a good orator, right? I can step up in front of a crowd and talk, right? I can read how people are responding to what I'm saying. You do a town hall meeting with 100 people hanging off the end of a screen, that's much tougher. You can't read that, right? And so it certainly was a lot more challenging than we expected. It became a lot more challenging because of COVID, and it was unbroken ground for us in terms of how do we manage this, right? And so that in itself caused stress and heartache for the organisation and growing pains. We had to become a lot more patient as an organisation. So the Masan Resources company being 10-year-old, it didn't have the history, or if you like, some of the sacred cows within the business, because they didn't exist. They hadn't had time to become ingrained, right? And so then it's a case of the business learning to slow up, listen more, and take the time to get the new members of the team on the journey. So we acquired the business in June. We did a strategy session around September, all online, with our colleagues in Germany, in China, and in Canada, all online. To do that,
I was just about to say, what time did you do that with all those different time zones?
Yeah, we started at lunchtime and finished at midnight, right? And so it was a compromise for different parts of the business, right? And so, but we thought that was important. And then the soonest we've been able to get everyone in the room together was actually 3 weeks ago, right? Because Vietnam only opened up on March 15 this year. And so in the last 3 weeks was the first time we've actually had all of the leadership of the organisation in the one location together, right? And so it's been a credit to the team in particular, their levels of tolerance and patience of each other over the last 2 years, that the business has had its best financial performance ever in 2021, right? And the team working around or through or overcoming the challenges of COVID and distance. I think things took a lot longer than what we would have liked, but it got done, right? And I think that the reason it got done is because we had very good plans. We sat down and explained to people where we're going, why we're going there. Integration plans might have 100, 200, 300 activities, right? But we had defined through our process that there's about 10 things that provide 80% of the value, right? And let's focus on those 10 things first, right? Don't worry about anything else. Get those things right. And in doing that, the rest of it will take care of itself in due course, right? And that's what we did, right? And that then delivered performance results. And then people see the performance results, they feel the performance results, they feel part of a winning team as a result of seeing those performance improvements. And so then people are more inquisitive to get on board as you're doing more, right? The last 3 weeks have all been about having a look at business processes, right? What are we doing that's efficient? What are we doing that's not efficient? How do we standardize our process across the business? How do we more and more use the technology that's available to give people more time in their day, so they've got ability to spend more time on value-adding tasks versus non-value-adding tasks, right? And I'm not the person who's going to come in and tell people what that is and what that isn't. Our people are the best people to be able to do that. What I've got to do is give them the opportunity to have those discussions and get exposed to what is available to them to improve their job, so that they then take themselves on that journey from a job that's 50% pushing paperwork and 50% adding value to ideally zero pushing paperwork, because the system's actually looking after all that and they're spending 80-90% of their day adding value, right? And I want the job to be interesting for those people. I want those people to get up in the morning, be excited about getting out of bed and going to work and doing their 8 hours or 10 hours or 20 hours, depending on the nature of the job they're in, and go home proud of what they've done, proud to talk to their family and have dinner with their kids. And that's the type of organisation we want to be. And that's, when you talk about sustainability, we want our people to be proud of working for us. We want our families to be proud of the fact that their husband, wife, child, partner, daughter, son works for MHT Global, right? It's going to be a great place to be. And so that's what we're trying to create.
And lastly, what's the outlook for the rest of this year and obviously going into next year as well?
I'd like the global freight situation to improve itself. That'd help me a lot, but I'm not alone there. The business looks good. Our order book is strong. The challenge we've got at the moment is we're seeing more orders come in than what we've got the ability to produce. And that's a combination. I think some of that's freight issues in terms of getting raw materials in. Some of that is quite simply for certain products, we're at our production capacity. And so we'll work through that. We'll make sure all the customers get the materials that they want when they want them. But it's creating new challenges for us as we work our way through that. We're expecting this year from a business performance perspective to be better than last year. Prices are better, but beyond prices, our production's running well. And so we're seeing positives there. The year will really be one of setting a platform, right? So we want to become more efficient. We want to standardize our processes, drive that efficiency in the business. This year is an investment in that. We're not going to see the benefits of that till next year and the year after. And part of that will actually bringing the whole business onto common systems and platforms. that's probably a 2 or 3 year project. Our team will talk about the fact that I keep telling them 2 years, 18 months. I know that's not realistic, but you've got to get set people a stretch target and then find out what they're capable of doing, right? And come up with new ways to do it. So, well, the year's looking good. We're getting our people together. We're getting our people across different parts of the business. We're already seeing, like I said, we're brought to get people together for the first time in the last month, and we're already seeing benefits of that, right? And so a lot of people talk about, yeah, you can do a lot of business now on Zoom or on Teams or Google Meets, Hangouts, etc. Yes, you can. You can get stuff done. I don't believe you can get the full value of people without actually putting them together, right? And so we're spending time and an investment in getting our people together, and we're seeing people bounce ideas that don't necessarily come through Fortress Computer, right? People spending time together, shooting the breeze, talking about their challenges, and what we're seeing, other people have had some of those challenges in the past, and they're offering a solution over a meal, right? Well, that's fantastic, right? And that's what I think we've missed, and globally businesses have missed over the last couple of years. Some people might say that we're obviously not doing Zoom and Google Hangouts and Teams the right way, but I don't agree. I think there's nothing better than getting really smart people together in a room, giving them a framework or an issue or an opportunity, as we call it, and seeing what they're capable of. And that's what I think we'll get more value out of this year and over the next couple of years of bringing our people together and getting them to collaborate more.
Yeah. And for what you just said, that's going back to when you worked at Mount Isa, and obviously you weren't probably didn't have computers then, phones were being on the wall, but what you were doing was interacting all the time, obviously in the workplace, but obviously socially as well. And it was always face-to-face conversations that you were having. And obviously as technologies move forward, we're probably having less and less of that interaction, whether that's socially in the workplace, and it's not face-to-face all the time. It is via obviously we're speaking on Zoom now, but it's going back to those basics again. And I suppose the companies that will, or potentially can benefit, is using some of the technology, but also going back to the basics and having those conversations face-to-face. And that can apply to any business as well, including mine in recruitment.
So look, the technology's got its place, right? And great example, we had built a furnace in China, right? And in the middle of COVID, we couldn't get the OEM to go to our site to commission the equipment, right? Now, their solution was, well, it's got to sit there until we can send someone, right? Now, we're not going to live with that, right? And so we were using Microsoft's HoloLens technology. Put a helmet on, you can have someone sit over your shoulder, look at it, right? And so we commissioned a furnace using HoloLens technology, right? So we had a number of people with a HoloLens. We had the OEM basically sitting on their shoulder, walking them through what to do, right, to commission that furnace. In the end, we had that furnace commissioned 3 weeks ahead of the original schedule as a result of using HoloLens, which was a fantastic result. Gave us better results, right? But and so technology has its place, right? But beyond that, getting people together. Humans are social creatures, right? They like interacting. They like interacting face to face, having a coffee, having a meal together. We're not one-dimensional people. We all have families, or we have interests. We have work. We have investments. We have parents. There's lots of things that go beyond the person than this one-dimensional aspect, right? And having people spend time together and have those discussions and build those relationships, you get better performance out of the people as a result. And and talking about putting people in the room and talking about an opportunity, right? We've got a problem in this part of the plant, right? You have a multidisciplinary team look at it, they then look at it from all different facets, not just from one way. And as a result of that, and that collaboration that occurs, and that bouncing ideas off each other collectively, you end up with better outcomes. And that was par for the course before COVID. My expectation is that businesses globally will go back to that at a point in time, because it'll give them better performance, right? Now, it's easy, I'm not criticising accountants, but it's easy to look at the cost of travel, and we've just saved all this money in cost of travel. Yeah, but it's not about that. It's about, beyond that cost element, what was the value creation in your business from face-to-face collaboration, right? And my view is that face-to-face collaboration had greater value accretion to an organisation than that cost of saving on a flight and accommodation, right? And so it's not all going to go one way or the other, but I think there's a lot of value to be had by bringing your people together. And certainly we're seeing the benefit of that over the last few weeks already. I think with the ideas that have come out over the last couple of weeks, we'll have made back the money on the cost by a factor of 10 times in terms of process improvements and ideas that people have already got.
Yeah, and that's a great point to share, and hopefully the audience can take that point away, especially, and just think about their own businesses and what they're doing in order to create extra value from what you just said. So, Craig, really appreciate your time and sharing your journey with us and with obviously the audience, and telling us how things have changed with MHT and the transitions that you've just recently been through. So really great chat. If our audience wants to reach out to you, if they've got any questions, how can they go about doing that? Are you across any social media platforms?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. I think that's actually the only social media platform I'm on. I'm not on Facebook or anything else. So the most of my kids not happy with that, but anyway. So I'm on LinkedIn. Reach out to me on LinkedIn, and connect from there. Yeah, all good. Rob, appreciate the talk. It's been enjoyable. Appreciate it, and always happy to share what we're doing and where we're going and why we're doing it.
Yeah, that's great, and obviously probably come on next year and certainly give us an update. I imagine that the company has social media presence, so I'll get those details and include them in the show notes accompanying this as well, so people can follow your journey.
The company's certainly on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and all. So the company certainly is, because it's got a whole lot of younger people in the organisation that are all very good at all those mediums. But myself, just LinkedIn.
Yeah, no worries.
Right, thank you.
Yeah, really appreciate your time again. And for those that are listening, great episode there. So appreciate if you can share this amongst friends, family, others in the industry, because there's a lot of points that we can take away from this episode. And just obviously the last few points about adding value and obviously having those face-to-face interactions and sharing ideas, you probably get a different perspective than what you probably have done over the last few years, doing things via obviously Zoom. And obviously you're watching this on the YouTube channel or listening to this on the podcast, but trying to get back to those face-to-face interactions, I think you'll get added value in whatever you're doing. So that's a great point to take away. So appreciate your continued support, and until next time, happy mining.